Okay, so in this video we are going to review box method or four square method for adding fractions and mixed numbers. So I already have a fraction equation written out, 2 1/4 plus 3 5/8. Now when we do box method, the first step that we need to do, so what is going to go in our first box, we are going to rewrite the equation. So 2 1/4 plus 3 5/8. Okay, the next step is the same kind of as what we do when we are solving the other way or using the other strategy. We need to find common denominators. Now the way that we're going to do that with box method is we are going to take both of the denominators that we have in our original problem, which would be 4 and 8, and we're going to take them over into box 2 and write them out. And what we're going to do with these is we're going to write out or list the multiples for each number so that we can find their least common multiple, which will then become our least common denominator. So for 4, I'm going to write 4, 8, 12, 16. And as you can see, I could have already stopped at 8 because 8 is also a multiple of 4, which is our other denominator. So this is going to make changing these fractions a little bit easier on us. So we have 8 and 8. That is the least common multiple between these two denominators. So that is what we are going to use. So then we're going to go down to box number 3, and we're going to rewrite our fraction again. I just like to do this so that I have all the numbers right there in front of me, and it just makes it a little bit easier to see the transition and making our equivalent fractions. So we have 2 1/4 plus 3 5/8. Now we need to make equivalent fractions in order to change them and get common denominators. So I'm going to go down here. Our whole numbers are going to stay the same when we're adding fractions. And then we know that we need 8 as our common denominator because we picked that out of our multiples up here. So I'm going to go ahead and write those out. So we have 2 and blank over 8 plus 3 and blank over 8. And I'm going to actually start with our second one because this one's really easy. We don't need to do anything to that one because we already had 8 as our denominator here. So 8 was already the denominator. We did not do anything to the 8, so we didn't do anything to this denominator except for times 1. Whenever we do something to one part of our fraction, we have to do it to the other part as well. So if we took this times 1, we're going to take the top, our numerator, times 1 as well. 5 times 1 is going to give us 5, so that stays the same. Okay, so then we have to go over to this fraction. Now we need to figure out what did we do to the denominator of 4 to make it become 8. Well, you can see that if we go back up to box number 2, we did times 1 times 2. So we took 4 times 2 in order to get 8, so I'm going to write that down here. So 4 times 2. And like I said before, in order to create equivalent fractions, whatever we do to one part of the fraction, we have to do that to the other part as well. So I took my 4 times 2, so I'm going to take my 1 times 2. So we have 4 times 2, which gave us 8 as our new denominator, and then 1 times 2 as our new numerator, and 1 times 2 is 2. So now we have 2 2/8 plus 3 5/8. Now when I do my final step of adding, I'm going to add my whole numbers first. So 2 plus 3 is going to give us 5. And then 2/8 plus 5/8 is going to give us something over 8. And the reason I'm going to write my 8 first is because I know that when I'm adding fractions, my denominator stays the same. It does not change. So then I'm going to take 2 plus 5 the numerator, so 2 plus 5 is 7. And I have the answer 5 and 7/8. So I'm going to go ahead and write that over in box number 4, 5 and 7/8. Now my final step in box number 4 is to see if I need to regroup or simplify. And I'm going to look at my fraction portion of this to determine that. So in order to tell if I need to regroup, I'm going to look at my top number, my numerator, versus my denominator. If my numerator is larger than my denominator, I'm going to need to regroup and take a whole or possibly more out. My numerator is smaller than my denominator, which means we have a proper fraction, so we do not need to regroup there. The last step is to see if I need to simplify my fraction, and 7/8 is as simplified as I can get. Therefore, I do not need to simplify. So the final answer to 2 1/4 plus 3 5/8 is 5 7/8.